Thank you, Dame Siobhan, and I commend the Honourable Member for securing this hugely important debate, because I think that the cost of living, and in particular food prices, is one of the single biggest issues I get contacted about, or certainly when I'm speaking to constituents. And certainly the cost of living is being driven by the rising food prices. But what did astound me is someone just last week emailed me a photo of a tube of toothpaste from the supermarket in Badger Farm in Winchester, and it was £8 for a tube of toothpaste. This wasn't a special new one that claims to whiten your teeth and cure all the other oral ailments. It was just a bog standard toothpaste. And I think we're all finding that we leave the supermarket kind of baffled that when you're walking away with just one bag of shopping, sort of primarily essentials that you've just popped in to grab, and it's come to £50, £60. It's affecting absolutely everyone. But in particular, we're finding people struggling just to meet the basics, the absolute basics, not just food, but other life essentials. And several other members here today have spoken about farming and food producers. And as a vet who grew up on a farm, so has worked in farming in many capacities, I think that is one of the most underestimated ways of helping address this cost of living crisis. As my honourable friend for Orkney mentioned about the issue we have with farm gate prices being so low that many farmers are earning significantly less than the living wage, and yet the supermarket prices are so high that many people can't afford to buy basic, decent quality food. And that shows the absolute necessity for having the revised food strategy, which I think has to be an absolute imperative for this government. Because I know what it's like to have to get up at 5:30 in the morning to milk cows, or calve cows in the middle of the night, or work all night doing lambing. And farmers work all these hours in all weathers, but then often the income at the end of the year isn't related to the amount of work they put in, because it can be affected by factors completely out of their control. It could be a disease outbreak, a trade deal, a weather event. And that frustration of not getting rewarded for the amount of effort and time and energy you put in is making many long-term futures in farming unsustainable, and they need a huge amount of support. And I think especially now, when we have a very volatile geopolitical situation where food security is part of our national security, we have 45% of our food being imported. It's more important now than ever to have this as a key component of our national resilience. But when we are desperate to have food that is more affordable, we also have to be very mindful that signing trade deals with the USA that would undercut our farmers when it comes to welfare standards, to environmental standards, and to sort of basic public health standards would be hugely detrimental. We don't want food like chicken that's been washed in chlorine. We don't want hormone-treated beef. We don't want eggs that have been produced by battery hens. It would be bad for British farming. It would be bad for animal welfare, and it would be bad for public health, the antibiotic use. So I urge the government to ensure this is enshrined in any trade deals, that these will be protected. But just to finish, Dame Siobhan, I want to pay tribute to the food banks in Winchester. I've visited them on more than one occasion, and we've got the Winchester Basics Bank, we've got the food pantry in Unit 12. There's a huge team of staff and volunteers, over 80, that I want to thank for all their work, because they're extremely busy at the moment, and all the community and faith groups that support them as well, and the churches. But we can take a step back, and despite all our economic troubles, we are one of the wealthiest nations on the planet. And we can be a nation where an honest day's work pays a living wage, and no one with a full-time job should be going to food banks to feed their children. And we can be a nation where no child is ever going to school hungry. And these are choices we have to make, and they're urgent choices. We have to address them as soon as we can.